They are trying to provoke us with attack dogs and pepper spray.
So your latest album, Verde, got a lot of like really positive attention. Like it just people, everyone I know loves that. Um, we kind of want to know if you could maybe take us through the process of that album, like the conceptualization of it. How did you just go in and decide we're going to put songs together in this one, or the production of it to the final release? How you decided what songs were going to be on this album and stuff? Could you take us a little bit through that process?
Yeah, let's see. There was a lot of different things that happened in the process of that album. So we started up in 2014. We're going to be going on our 10-year anniversary this upcoming spring, which is really exciting. But I think we had just been together for a year when we put out our first EP, and it was a pretty DIY production. We went to a studio and kind of just like had a few songs that me and Adrian had written, and then the band as a whole, had put together and arranged and whatnot. And that was like the catalyst of, like what we were doing as far as recording wise. And eventually in 2018, some of those songs from that EP showed up on the album as well. But it was really exciting to kind of, I don't know if I'd say like have a redo per se, but like as I was saying, things evolve, and I think that's something that this band tends to do. We don't change our songs like from the ground up, but we like will hear something. It's like, oh man, this would be a cool horn line for that song. We haven't worked that in on the recording necessarily, but let's add that in, things like that. And so when we came out with the 2018 album, a lot of the songs that were on the EP originally, they really evolved into something way different and still the same at their core, but just added parts and whatnot. And then of course we were still writing different music and different tunes and working with different musicians, and eventually we kind of like brought in a bigger band for that album essentially, and it was our first like full length album, as you were saying. It's our latest one. And yeah, the recording process. Here, I'll let you go in on this one.
I look at that album as kind of like a snapshot of what was happening in 2018. That was basically their live show, and I kind of duped these guys and said, "Hey, we're gonna have a rehearsal," and then we recorded everything, and those ended up as the album, which is nice. I mean, there was no click or any of that kind of stuff. It was all. So we did that album, and it was actually produced by myself and our keyboard player and trumpet player at the time, at his studio, the Iron Lion Studios in Albuquerque. And yeah, it did pretty well. It's pretty neat the way it kind of worked out, but it's way past due. We had plans right before the pandemic to come in and record in 2021, and it just didn't happen. So we ended up doing a lot of we released 2 singles between then and now, Light and Seeds, and we actually did those. I recorded a lot of stuff here and bounced stuff to different studios to get mixed. And, it's kind of neat. I mean, that's how a lot of people are making music these days because of that whole situation. But we're ready for another snapshot, I think. We got different players now and a bunch of new tunes. And so we're just kind of chomping at the bit. As a matter of fact, on the way back from this little tour going up to Washington in September, we're going to end up in Oakland. We're going to spend a day in studio there at Jason Cropper's studio.
Nice.
And yeah, it was a lot of fun. We worked with our friend and artist, JC Bial, and he's an incredible graphic designer. And we had a bunch of different ideas for an album name because, like you as artists in a band, it's really fun to name things. It's really fun to give a work of art some identity. And Adrian, I think, was the one who conceptualized Verde because, that was us at that snapshot in time. It was we were growing as a band. We were still pretty young, and we were blooming as a band. And we used the yucca flower on the album cover because, that's a great time state for New Mexico as well. But also, again, our friend JC Bial just killed it on that artwork. It looks really beautiful, and the whole album's color scheme, of course, is green, Verde. And yeah, it was really fun to put all that together, get the packaging and everything together, and we did an album release party eventually over in Albuquerque, and we had a few friends from around the area and indigenous artists as well, Lindy Vision, Defy, and whatnot. But yeah, as Adrian said, I think it was a great time capsule for that period of our music. And yeah, I think we're ready to be coming out with something new pretty soon to show everybody where we're at right now.
You guys have a wonderful reputation for energetic live performances. That goes without saying. How do you guys manage as a group to translate the studio recorded tracks into captivating those experiences that you guys bring to the stage in front of all your guys' fans all over?
I think it goes the other way. My performances on the record, you know, that's been my approach. I mean, I don't know. I really like production and a lot of, you know, post-production stuff. But really, man, it's like I said, Lawrence, the drummer, and when we all get in the same room, he's like a metronome. We don't need click tracks and those kind of things, you know. It's really amazing. So, but yeah, Rylan, do you want to touch base on?
Yeah, actually, Romeo, you should add to this one too. I'd be really curious to your answer on this one.
Well, you know, as far as that goes, from my point of view, as actually, I'll be real, I'm a latecomer to the band. The day these came out, the CDs, Verde CDs were printed out and pressed, and I think you guys got them in the mail. I happened to run into Adrian and Carlo. They had the box of CDs, and Adrian handed me one and said, "Learn these songs in case we, you know, we need a sax player. You could come on tour with us." And I'm like, heck yeah. You know, and that was just totally a random, you know, the creator was kind of here. You need to be right here, right now. So that's what happened. And yeah, but with that being said, if you go to a live Innastate performance and are expecting the performance to sound exactly like the recording, you're probably not going to get that. I think the live performance, I mean, the songs, like Rylan said, they're not, earlier he said that they're not broken down from the ground up and redone. We discover something that sounds great, you know, like a horn line, instead of having it like originally it was like a unison with the whole band. And then, oh, you know what? It sounds better if the rhythm section grooves with that, and the horn line just keep going on. We start as a unison, and they groove, and then we just keep the horn line going. So different from the recording, really cool in a live performance. And so there's all these moments like that where, like, you know, and, you know, not to toot my own horn too much, but there's some stuff that I've written that's now kind of standard with some of our songs.
Yeah.
That we do live that you can't hear on the CD. So that's where I'm coming from as far as what I bring to the table with the band. And thank you guys for letting me do that and expressing myself in these ways and how I think the song should go sometimes. So thank you guys for that.
Heck yeah, let's see. And bringing it back one more time, I think the important thing for, you know, like translating something from an album is obviously the focus is always the songs, you know, like even if it's a performance, even if it's a live thing, the performance is not on the band. The performance is not about the performance. It's about the songs. And when you have those songs and you lock them in and you're conveying that story to the essence to bring out that spirit of that song, everything else just works out, you know, like you can like do whatever to perform it as long as you're like bringing out that spirit of the song, like that translates over so well. And I think all of us tend to, again, have a lot of different musical influences and whatnot. I tend to be a lot more on the metal side for sure, and just a lot of different things. And for me, seeing an artist perform live, you know, like there's nothing like it. You get to experience the way they want their music to be heard, the way they interpret their own music. And that's a beautiful thing. And again, I think just try to stay true to the spirits of the songs and bring out as much of that as we can and convey that to the audience. And I think it's a really special thing to be able to do that.
I love the different backgrounds and how you all just brought this new reggae tone to us. It's just amazing. The more I get to talk to you, the more I love you guys even more. Speaking of which, as we know, it's the music industry is always rapidly changing. So I'm wondering, how do you guys approach the balance between staying true to your musical roots, but then still, experimenting with new sounds to keep your music fresh and, relevant?
I'll be honest, I don't think we put that much thought into trying to be cool or fit in. We just kind of make music. I really like these guys' songs, as musicians. I like to write songs too, but I like Ryland's tunes. He writes a lot of great music. And for me, it's about like just trying to fit in like my playing style and my approach to music. I don't think we have that big of we don't worry about the rest of the world too much. We're just trying to stay to ourselves for the most part.
Yeah, and I guess that would tie back into just what I was just saying, because if you have a story that's worth telling, then like somebody's going to want to be a part of that. Somebody's going to want to hear that story at some point in time. And if you have a story that people relate to, then people are going to react to that when they find out that's what the story you're trying to tell is. It's a really special thing. I remember the first time that we performed we performed this like small venue like it was a few years ago, like before our first album even came back, and people were singing one of the songs that we have called The Way, and I could hear them singing it, and I was just like, wow, like that's something that had never even occurred to me was possible, was that people knew what I was talking about. They cared enough that I was talking about it. And again, when you have that sort of thing, like there are just some of those songs that are timeless, like no matter what. And, I'm not trying to compare us to like all the greatest of greats or anything, but, there are some of those songs that it doesn't matter like what technological advances may come. There's some of those songs that will stand the test of time because they're those stories, like it might be like not a story song particularly telling you, oh, like this person named Mac went over here and that's what happened. It's like, no, like this is the human experience in this way. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you're going to love this song. And that's just how it goes. And when there are those songs, they're going to be timeless because the human experience is going to change for a lot of different reasons. But humans are always going to relate to the human experience because that's what we are. But yeah, sorry if that sounds a bit redundant.
No, it's actually an amazing lead into Harris's next question.
Perfect segue, yes. Many listeners enjoy, like we hear about it all the time here, diving deep into the meanings behind their own personal song lyrics. And one of you could please share a song from your background that holds a particularly personal or significant meaning to you and why it's important to you in terms of your personal background approach, please.
Oh, let's see. What song should we say, guys?
Sailing.
This is more
Sailing, yeah.
But,
Yeah.
we all have our approaches to things. And for me, I could pick a song, some artist. Are you talking about it from another artist or one of ours?
Oh, one of yours.
Yours.
My kind of thing is like I write a lot of these love songs, and then some of them come from personal experience, but some of them are just kind of made up. And I was talking to Romeo the other day, and we're talking about how our music, relates to people and how sometimes it's not as indigenous as some people would expect. And then Romeo pointed out that, well, you have a really unique approach to songwriting. You always represent nature and these things that are important to indigenous people. And I'd never thought about that. And I started reading my lyrics and I'm like, oh, that's true, singing about comparing the woman to the sunrise and these kind of things, but that's just kind of my approach to things. Ryland comes from a totally different introspective kind of place. It's very personal. And I think you should talk about one of your tunes, Ben, because they're very powerful.
Yeah, let's see. Well, you guys had mentioned Sailing. Harris, I believe. Let's see.
My favorite song.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. Like musically, it's really upbeat. It feels really good. And a lot of the great pop songs, like, feel really good, and then you like listen to the lyrics and you're like, oh, that's a total bummer. And that's like the sweet spot. That's like where you really like that's where again that just relation comes in, because it's like, yeah, I can dance to this and I can cry my eyes out at the same time and go home and be like, somebody felt like that with me. Like, but anyways, so sailing was one of the first tunes we wrote for the or for the album, actually, adjacent to the ones that we already had for our EP. And it was actually at a particularly tumultuous time in my life when my parents were actually going to be splitting up. And it was my way of actually trying to understand my feelings and cope with that realization that that's what was happening. And Sailing is a breakup song. It talks about how, to your partner, like, you lock me out as if I were a stranger. You cut me out as if you had a razor. And I use the analogy of sailing away out to sea, away from away from that land, away from your home, what you used to find so endearing, what you used to always be around. Like, it's time to sail off to a new place, and now I'm sailing out of your life and scene. And it is strange that I thought we'd never been. It's where we've never been. But it's like, once you find a new life, it's just a distant memory at that point. And there's even the bridge which says, we must remain perfect strangers because I know what we've been. We must remain perfect strangers because I love you, my friend. And that's, sometimes the reality of it is there are some relationships you can't really fix, like by moving forward with them. You kind of have to just say, this is as far as we can go together, and now it's time for a new adventure. And so Sailing is kind of that was what that was about. So it's a good one. I hope listeners like that one. Well, I hope you guys like all of our music, but
I do. But if you ask me, one of my favorites that has, especially here, because we broadcast in a beautiful building right over the Puget Sound here, and there's boats and sailboats all the time. So I envision, being lucky enough to being on one of those boats, listening to you just sailing as we're sailing.
Cool. Awesome. That's super cool.
They are trying to provoke us with attack dogs and pepper spray. Well, this is a peaceful protest. Protect us, stand your ground and pray. 'Cause when the pipeline